if the Bucs don't go 4-1 in their next 5 games, Doc Rivers has to be fired. You're at Minnesota tonight, at Philly, 2 games in a row against the Hornets, home and home, at the Bulls. Anything less than 4-1 in that stretch, Doc cannot, or Doc, I should say, has to go. Has to be fired. You may think, Ryan, they just hired him. He's 10 games in. They're not going to fire Doc Rivers after 15 games. Are you stupid? You may not think it's possible. Let me, though, explain to you why absolutely it is on the table and should happen. First and foremost, financially, right? That's always the biggest thing we got to talk about here first. Doc Rivers is getting paid $40 million to coach the Bucs over the next 3.5 years. If you look at it from this perspective, that $40 million is already gone. But if you are Bucs ownership, $40 million is already spent. Now, if you're spending $40 million, are you going to allow that money to ruin your season? To crater what was supposed to be a championship aspiration year after you land Dame, after you get Giannis to commit? Are you going to allow that $40 million to then further ruin future seasons with Doc at the helm? Or are you smart enough and wise enough to say, okay, that $40 million I spent, it was an awful investment, but we're not going to let the money we spent derail us from what we truly want, which is a championship. So the $40 million is gone. It's, okay, do you want a bad coach or a good coach? Well, if I'm spending $40 million, hell, I want a good coach. Is Doc Rivers a good coach? No. Okay, see you later. Money shouldn't be a problem here. If you want to look at it as already spent money, now it's about getting the right guy for the job. So $40 million for Doc, that is a hurdle number one, I think, cleared. But also, too, when you look at this scenario here, it's not normal, right, to fire the interim coach, especially an interim coach you paid $40 million. But what I would also say is this season for the Bucs, this situation for the Bucs, is anything but normal. So why act normal in a year that's been abnormal? Right? This started when you land Dame. You get that superstar player to what was supposed to be considered a small market of Milwaukee. Now, all of a sudden, you have one of the best, arguably the best, 1-2 combo in Dame and Giannis in all of the NBA. You hire a first-time head coach in Adrian Griffin. And then, to continue the abnormality, you fire Adrian Griffin after he started the year 30-13. What other coach is getting fired after starting in year number 1, 17 games over 500? You never see that. And the abnormality then continues when then you say, okay, most times you hire from within. All right, we'll promote an assistant, have him run the team, and then we'll reassess at the end of the year. They went right from firing Adrian Griffin to go into the broadcast booth and bringing in Doc Rivers. So this has been an anything but normal season right now for the Milwaukee Bucks. So if you're already okay, if you're the Bucks front office and ownership, if you're already okay with the fact that you're going to make an unconventional firing in firing a first-time head coach who is 17 games over 500, why would then you go back to logical thinking and say, well, we can't fire Doc because, well, he's an interim coach. We got to give him time. If you fired a head coach in year number 1 who got you to be 30-13 through the first 43 games, then you can absolutely fire a coach who is 3-7 in his first 10, who has lost games to guys, to teams like Memphis, who was just obliterated with injuries. Portland, who's more interested in getting a top draft pick than they are winning games. And even Utah, who you are way more talented than. Those are teams that Doc Rivers has lost to. You can't tell me that you are willing to fire Adrian Griffin, but then you can't fire Doc Rivers. Yes, you can. It's not too late. This season is not over. You could still make changes to save what has been, to this point, a failure. It is not too late to save the season. Remember, you fired Adrian Griffin in the middle of year number 1 because you were desperate for change, right? You could have waited to the end of year number 1. You could have justified if we wanted to give him time. We wanted to see if adjustments would take place, how he would react to listening to the players get frustrated with his defensive sets. And you could have said, okay, let's see what he does in the postseason. Doesn't work out. Okay, see you later. You're fired. You could have easily justified that if you're the Bucks. But instead, your patience was zero. Hey, we got to win right now with Dame. We got to win right now with Giannis. They don't like how Griffin's coaching the defense. They don't like how he's utilizing rotations. Well, we're not going to wait any longer. He's fired. Boom, you're out of here. So if you were desperate to make changes ASAP, where you weren't going to be patient, why would then you be patient with Doc? Why would then you do the opposite of what you just did and give Doc Rivers rope when you gave no rope to Griffin and he was winning games? That's the crazy. Winning is the cure-all. They said that for a reason, because any problem is solved in the post-game victory locker room after a win. A lot of frustrations dissipate. Well, what are frustrations at now when you start 3-7? And by the way, you start 3-7 and everything has gotten worse. You want to complain about Adrian Griffin, how he ran things, how he used players, how he implemented defensive systems. Well, then you better be livid and hold Doc Rivers accountable when he comes in to a team that was still one of the best teams in the league and has so far cratered them. And that's why I don't think anything, that's why I think you should fire Doc Rivers right now if we're talking about a 5-game stretch out of the All-Star break where you are anything less than 4-1. You're playing the Hornets twice, you're playing the Bulls, and you're playing a Sixers team without Embiid. You should win all 4 of those games, no problem. No problem. If Doc can't get this team turned around, I don't see, with how you acted in firing Adrian Griffin, how you can then justify keeping Doc Rivers. You can't. I don't want to hear about injuries. I don't want to hear about the schedule. When you made this decision, you brought in Doc Rivers to win now. Make changes that lead to winning immediately. Not in a few weeks, not next year. This was, hey, we got to save our season right now. And all Doc has done is come in and make things worse. This is a team where you look at the offense, they have completely cratered since Doc has taken over. Defense has marginally improved, but guys aren't listening to Doc. They're out of sync. There's miscommunication. Guys are frustrated. He has come in and made everything worse. Why would you continue to let that happen? Why would you throw away year number 1 of Giannis and Dame to keep a coach who, by the way, this is where he's supposed to thrive? Doc Rivers is a great regular season coach. 8th most regular season wins in NBA history. Where he struggles, where he gets clowned the most, is in the postseason. Because he has routinely coached great regular season teams that always underachieve come postseason time, that never go as far as they should, that have a habitual habit of blowing 3-1 leads. I guess that was redundant, habitual habit. But you get the point. Habitually blow 3-1 leads more than any other coach could ever imagine. So also, too, if you're the Bucks, look, I thought from the jump, hiring Doc Rivers was a massive mistake because you're hiring him in part for what he can do in the playoffs, and he's an awful playoff coach. But his strength, if you will, is what he does in the regular season. And right now, he's a joke. And he's not getting any better than the playoffs. So I don't know why, if this swoon continues, why you would let it go if you're the Bucks. The last thing I'll say here is I think part of the reason why you are seeing this Bucks team look like one of the worst teams in the league with Doc as the coach so far through 10 games is because Doc Rivers is not accountable. Doc Rivers is in the blame game business. He is there to point finger at you, and you. It's your fault we're losing, not mine. Oh, no, not me. I'm just here trying to save the day. You're making my job harder. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's not my fault. It's your fault. I want to play something. I put this together myself here earlier today. Remember, Doc Rivers has been with the Bucks for 10 games. That's it. 10 games. Every clip I just put together in this short little montage you're about to hear was from within the last 10 games. Was since Doc Rivers is hired as the Bucks head coach. You tell me if you hear a theme in Doc's press conferences. Take a listen.
Taking a job when you're about to go on the toughest road trip of the season is not the smartest decision. I even told them that. Can we wait till All-Star break? You know, it would have been a lot nicer. The organization felt strongly that a change needed to be made defensively and things like that, and that's what we're doing. The problem is while you're doing that, you're in the middle of the season on the toughest trip that you're on, and in 3 or 4 of those games, 2 of your key players are out. I've been in Milwaukee 4 days. I've had the job for 3 weeks, so it's been difficult. It's been probably more difficult than I thought.
Listen, I've never done this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I can tell you that just from the day and a half. But it's going to be a challenge. First play, we gamble for the 50th time in the corner. Guy drives. We have to help. We come back in this on our set. 2 guys forget what we're running. Then we miss the shot, and then nobody gets back. That's how we start out the third quarter. That tells you all you need to know about where our heads were. We had some guys here. We had some guys in Cabo.
Personally, I'll be honest. I told our owners when they called, I said, I don't understand why you're doing this. And they said, one of the things they said was, well, it doesn't matter. We've done it now, and we want you. And so that was a tough one. That's where you had the hesitation.
I mean, come on. He's been there 10 games. That was 90 seconds, 2 minutes of excuses. It's not my fault. I try to tell them, hey, if you're going to fire Adrian, can you fire him after the All-Star break so I get a few days? It's not my fault. I'm coming in here. I've been in Milwaukee 3 days. I mean, it's excuse after excuse after excuse. How can you take this guy seriously? How can you truly think right now of your Bucks ownership, which, by the way, is the ones that made the calls? You could just tell by Doc right there, speaking with the owners directly, right over the GM's head. But how can you truly sit there and say, this is our guy that is going to lead us to a championship with Dame and Giannis when he's sitting there pointing the finger 10 games in and everybody but himself? Why are players' heads in Cabo there, Doc? How come you, who's supposed to come in refreshed, rejuvenated, ready to go save the day, how can you not get through to players? How can you not have them motivated? They're already tuning you out. They're already not listening to what you're saying. And if you're the Bucks, it's not too early to fire him. 5 games starting tonight in Minnesota. Anything less than 4-1, see you later. Doc is out. Fired. If you could fire Adrian Griffin after 43 games in which he started 30-13, you can absolutely fire Doc Rivers after 15 games in which he's under 500 and has made everything he's touched worse. Have 3 coaches in a year if you're the Bucks. I don't see at this point what you have to lose.